What if I told you that 1959 wasn't just about chrome and fins, but about some of the most brutally fast cars Detroit ever built? Picture this. Every car magazine at the time showed massive sedans with towering rear fins, dripping in chrome, looking like they belonged on a showroom floor, not a drag strip. The automotive press talked about style, about presence, about how these cars dominated the street just by existing. But here's what nobody was really paying attention to. While designers were going wild with styling, the engineers were locked in a completely different war, a horsepower war. And some of the results were absolutely mental. Because in 1959, American manufacturers built cars that could genuinely run, not just cruise, not just look good, actually move with serious speed. And today, we're diving into the fastest of them all. The ones that combined that late-50s elegance with performance that still turns heads today. 59. Chevrolet Impala SS 348 Tri-Power. Let's start with one that changed everything. The 1959 Chevrolet Impala. Now, when you look at photos of this car, your first thought isn't speed. It's presence. Those batwing rear fins that stretch almost horizontally. Chrome everywhere. A greenhouse that looks like it belongs on a luxury liner. This thing weighs over 3,700 pounds. It's massive. But Chevrolet knew exactly what they were doing because underneath all that sheet metal, they dropped the 348 cubic inch W-block V8 with the Tri-Power setup. 3 two-barrel Rochester carburetors feeding this beast. Officially rated at 315 horsepower, but anyone who's driven one will tell you it felt like more. Way more. Here's where it gets interesting. The Impala wasn't marketed as a performance car. Chevrolet positioned it as their premium full-size model. Comfort, style, space. But they also knew their customers. Young guys were buying these things and immediately heading to the strip. And Chevy made sure the parts were there to support it. The Tri-Power 348 came with a hotter cam, stronger valve springs, dual exhausts, and a setup that responded the moment you stabbed the throttle. Road tests from the time show 0 to 60 in around 8 to 9 seconds. Quarter mile in the mid-16s. For a car this size in 1959, that was genuinely quick. Quick enough to surprise people who thought it was just another cruiser. And the sound. That 3i48 with 3 carbs had this deep mechanical bark that let everyone know something serious was under the hood. There's a reason why these cars are so sought after today. A clean 1959 Impala with the 348 Tri-Power can easily fetch between $60,000 and $100,000, with exceptional examples pushing even higher. Collectors know what they're looking at. This wasn't just a pretty face. It was one of the first signs that Chevrolet was serious about building fast cars for the street. Pontiac Bonneville Tri-Power 389. Now let's talk about Pontiac because by 1959, they had already started building a reputation, and the Bonneville was right at the center of it. Pontiac's wide-track marketing campaign was in full swing, emphasizing stability and handling. But they weren't just talking. They were backing it up with real engineering. The Bonneville came with Pontiac's 389 cubic inch V8, and when you optioned the Tri-Power setup, you got something special. 3 two-barrel carburetors, just like the Chevy, but with Pontiac's own touch. Around 315 to 330 horsepower depending on configuration, and a torque curve that pulled hard from low revs all the way up. What made the Bonneville different was intent. Chevrolet built the Impala to be many things. Pontiac built the Bonneville to be fast. You could feel it in the way the car was tuned. Stiffer suspension, quicker steering response for its class, better weight distribution thanks to that wide track stance. It didn't just accelerate hard. It felt more planted doing it. Road tests from 1959 showed 0 to 60 in around 8 seconds flat. Quarter-mile times in the high 15s to low 16s. And unlike some of its competitors, the Bonneville could actually handle a corner without wallowing all over the place. There's a reason why Pontiac became the performance brand at General Motors. It started right here, with cars like the Bonneville showing that you didn't have to sacrifice style or comfort to go fast. And when you look at values today, the market agrees. A 1959 Pontiac Bonneville with the Tri-Power 389 typically ranges between $50,000 and $90,000, with top examples going higher. It's not just a collector car. It's a piece of the foundation that led directly to the GTO and everything that followed. 959, Chrysler 300E, and now we get to the one that wasn't hiding anything. The 1959 Chrysler 300E. If you know your automotive history, you know the letter series 300s were never about subtlety. These were Chrysler's performance flagship, built specifically to dominate NASCAR and the Daytona speed trials. And the 300E carried that heritage forward with serious hardware. Under that long hood sat the 413 cubic inch wedgehead V8, in standard form 380 horsepower. But if you optioned the factory Ram induction setup, you got 390 horses breathing through twin four-barrel carbs mounted on long-tuned intake runners. This was racing technology on the street. The 300E didn't look like other 1959 cars. It was lower, sleeker, less chrome, more aggression. Chrysler knew who was buying these: enthusiasts, racers, guys who wanted the fastest thing they could register and drive on public roads. And the performance backed it up. 0 to 60 in around 7 seconds. Quarter mile in the mid-15s. Top speed well over 140 miles per hour. These were supercar numbers in 1959. In fact, the 300E held the title of America's most powerful car when it launched. Nothing else came close, and it wasn't just straight-line speed. Chrysler fitted the 300E with heavy-duty suspension, oversized brakes, and a stiffer frame. This car was built to be driven hard. Period road tests praised its handling and braking, which was rare for American cars at the time. The 300E proved you could have a big American luxury car that also performed like a genuine sports machine. Today, these cars command serious money. A well-preserved 1959 Chrysler 300E typically ranges between $80,000 and $160,000, with rare Ram induction models pushing even higher. It's not just a collectible, it's a legend. 59 Ford Galaxy 500 Thunderbird 352 Ford wasn't about to sit this one out. The 1959 Galaxy represented Ford's answer to Chevrolet's Impala. Big, comfortable, stylish, but with real performance potential lurking underneath. The top engine option was the 352 cubic inch Interceptor V8, which Ford had been developing for police and taxi use. This thing was built to take abuse. In its highest state of tune, the 352 made around 300 horsepower. Not the highest number on this list, but Ford's engineering made it competitive. What the Galaxy had was refinement. Ford had been working on their FE engine family for a few years by this point, and it showed. Smooth power delivery, strong mid-range torque, reliability. The Galaxy might not have been the wildest car here, but it was one of the most well-rounded. 0 to 60 in around 8 to 9 seconds, quarter mile in the mid-16s. Solid performance wrapped in a package that was comfortable for long highway drives. And that mattered, because these cars weren't just for the drag strip. People actually used them. Ford also understood the importance of options. You could get the Galaxy with heavy-duty suspension, limited slip differential, and better cooling. It was clear Ford was building a platform that could be pushed. And just a few years later, that same Galaxy platform would underpin some of the most legendary muscle cars ever built. Today, a 1959 Ford Galaxy 500 with the 352 Interceptor V8 typically ranges between $30,000 and $70,000, depending on condition. It's one of the more accessible cars on this list and a fantastic entry point into late-50s performance. 59 Dodge D500 Coronet. Here's one that gets overlooked way too often. The 1959 Dodge Coronet D500. Dodge had been playing the performance game for a few years by this point, and the D500 package was their way of offering serious speed without the Chrysler 300 price tag. The heart of the package was the 383 cubic inch B-block V8 with a 4-barrel carburetor, around 345 horsepower in D500 trim. But you could also option the insane Super D500 package with dual 4-barrel carbs, pushing output even higher. The D500 was a sleeper in the best way. It looked like any other big Dodge sedan. Chrome, fins, lots of glass. But the performance was there. 0 to 60 in around 7 to 8 seconds. Quarter mile in the mid-15s with the right gearing. And because it was a Dodge, it cost less than the Chrysler or even the Pontiac. That made it a favorite among racers who wanted maximum performance per dollar. Guys were buying these things, gutting the interiors, and running them at the strip. Dodge knew it and supported it. There's something pure about the D500, no pretense. No luxury branding, Just a solid, well-engineered performance package that worked. And when you look at the history of Mopar performance, cars like the D500 laid the groundwork. They proved that Dodge could build fast cars, really fast cars. Today, a 1959 Dodge D500 Coronet typically ranges between $35,000 and $75,000, depending on originality and condition. It's one of the best-kept secrets of the era, 59. Oldsmobile Super 88 Oldsmobile had a reputation in the 50s. They built cars that were fast without being flashy, and the 1959 Super 88 fit that description perfectly. Under the hood sat the 394 cubic-inch rocket V8, making around 315 horsepower in standard form. Oldsmobile had been refining this engine for years, and by 1959, it was incredibly smooth and reliable. But it also had real grunt. The Super 88 wasn't marketed as a muscle car. It was positioned as a premium mid-range sedan, comfortable, refined, but Oldsmobile engineers made sure it could move when needed. 0 to 60 in around 8 to 9 seconds. Strong mid-range torque that made passing effortless. And that Rocket V8 had one of the best exhaust notes of the era. Deep, smooth, powerful. It didn't scream like some of the others. It rumbled with authority. What's interesting about the Super 88 is how well-balanced it was. It wasn't the fastest car here, but it was one of the most complete. Good performance, good handling for its size, great build quality. Oldsmobile knew how to engineer a car that worked well in all conditions. And that's why the Super 88 has such a loyal following today. Values typically range between $30,000 and $65,000 depending on condition. It's not the flashiest, but it's one of the most rewarding to actually drive. 59 Mercury Park Lane. Mercury was always in an interesting position. Slotted between Ford and Lincoln, it had to offer something different. And the 1959 Park Lane was Mercury's answer. Upscale styling, plenty of chrome and luxury features. But underneath, the 430 cubic-inch Lincoln V8. This was the same engine Lincoln was using in their Continental Mark IV. Around 345 horsepower. Serious output wrapped in a package that looked more like a luxury cruiser than a performance machine. The Park Lane is the definition of a sleeper. It doesn't look aggressive. It looks elegant. But when you drop the hammer, it moves. 0 to 60 in around 8 seconds. Quarter mile in the mid-16s. And because of its Lincoln roots, the Park Lane felt more planted and stable at speed than many of its competitors. Better sound insulation. Higher quality interior materials. More attention to detail. It was a fast car that also happened to be genuinely luxurious. Mercury didn't sell as many Park Lanes as Chevrolet sold Impalas. But the ones they did sell were special. And today, collectors are starting to recognize that. Values typically range between $30,000 and $60,000, with exceptional examples going higher. It's one of the most underrated cars of the era. Fast, comfortable, and beautifully built. 1959, Buick Invicta. And finally, let's talk about the Buick Invicta. Buick in 1959 was known for building refined, upscale cars. Not muscle cars. Not hot rods, gentlemen's express machines. But the Invicta had a secret weapon. The 401 cubic-inch nailhead V8, in top trim, around 325 horsepower. And while the nailhead wasn't the most efficient engine design, it made torque. Lots of it. Low-end grunt that made the Invicta feel stronger than the numbers suggested. The Invicta is one of those cars that rewards you when you actually drive it. It's not about peak horsepower. It's about how the power is delivered. Smooth, linear, effortless. 0 to 60 in around 8 to 9 seconds. Not the fastest here, but more than enough to surprise people who thought Buicks were only for retirees. And the build quality was top-notch. Buick didn't cut corners. Solid construction, high-quality materials. A car that felt substantial in the best way. Values today typically range between $25,000 and $60,000, depending on condition. The Invicta doesn't get the attention of the Impala or the 300e, but it's a genuinely great car. Fast enough to be fun, refined enough to drive every day, and beautifully built. It's one of the hidden gems of 1959 outrow, so there you have it. The fastest American cars of 1959. Cars that combined elegance, nostalgia, and genuine speed in a way that's never been replicated. And here's what I want to know. Which one of these would you pick? The brute force of the Chrysler 300E? The balanced brilliance of the Pontiac Bonneville? Or maybe the underrated muscle